on. Well, I want to welcome everyone for coming to Congress Park Neighbors meeting tonight. We're a 40-year-old plus RNO. We're an all volunteer board, and we try to bring accurate information to neighbors about issues that involve the city and city government and what they're planning to do. The board does not take a position on issues without conducting a survey so that we accurately represent our neighbors. The meeting is being recorded tonight. Please take turns talking, direct your questions to the chat. A lot of tonight's meeting will be informational stuff about the neighborhood and some updates. Hillary Estner is with us tonight. Thanks for coming, Hillary. She's with the Cherry Creek branch of Public Library, and she's going to give us an update on what's going on down there. So, Hillary, thanks for coming, and go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, thanks so much for having me. Um, I'm really sorry to hear about everyone's hail damage. I uh, I live a lot farther north. I'm in Northeast Park Hill, and it was a long storm, but not so damaging. I'm so sorry to hear all that. I'm going to share my screen. So, oh, it's disabled, it looks like. Would it be possible for me to share a few slides? I'm not sure. You might need to enable me as a co-host, but if not, that's okay.
Hold on a sec.
There you go.
Oh, thank you so much. Perfect. There we go. So I wasn't sure. First of all, I'm so happy to be here. I haven't spoken to your group before. I've been with DPL for almost 20 years, and I've been at Cherry Creek for about 5 years. So if you think about it, they have been five rather exciting years between having COVID closure, then figuring all that out. And then we were open for a bit. And then we were closed for almost 2 years with figuring out some structural stuff. So I am just really have my fingers crossed for just a normal year there. So this is kind of what I have in store. I'm not sure how much of a background folks would like on just the literal building stuff versus programs and services, but I've just got a few things I'm going to run through, and then use my other few minutes for questions. So this is us. So yay, we are open. A lot of folks still don't seem to know that we're open, so we're getting the word out. We've got a few different plans for doing that. But we're open 6 days a week. We've got the exact same schedule as the Park Hill branch. If you go there, I know depending where you are in Congress Park, you're kind of split which one might be more convenient for you. If you like to go to Park Hill, I hold no ill will. It's a lovely library that I bike by every single day. I wanted to run through a little bit of spaces that we have at the library. If you had come to Cherry Creek before our closure, or maybe even not since pre-COVID, we have done a couple of little refreshes to the interior of the building. So I just have a couple photos to share. Different displays that we have. Of course, we have them for adults, teens, and kids. We have the Beehive area, which we use for programming, but also gets used most of the time for working quote unquote from home. We have a great children's area with lots of stuff for babies, toddlers, elementary ages. We still do have some of our adult collection on the first floor, but a lot of it is up on the second floor, which does tend to be a little bit quieter, which people like. So that's where we've got our media, our public computers, the adult fiction collection, and our very popular puzzle tables. Just to run through programs a little bit. Right now we're running story time 3 times a week, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays. This weekend we're doing a special story time for Pride. That's going to be Saturday at 11:30. We're also doing a monthly Kids Maker Club, and we're running Summer of Adventure right now. Summer of Adventure, if you're not familiar, it's the library's summer reading program. We've been doing it for, I think, over 100 years, but we kind of are constantly tweaking it. So this current iteration is really offering ways for kids to continue learning through reading, making, and exploring. And we're doing something new this year, which is having a closing party at the zoo for everyone who completes. In terms of adult programming, I would say we're kind of still trying to figure out what sticks a little bit. It's not quite as boilerplate as for the little ones, but some things we've done so far are adult origami. We did a chair yoga program. We've done some author talks, and we're going to be starting a monthly meditation program. Let's see. And of course, we're here for all of your regular library services. So whether that's research help, book recommendations, tech assistance, we're doing one-on-one. You can make an appointment to do that. We have free room reservations. We have free copying, printing, scanning, faxing, all that good stuff we can help with. Yeah, and so, oh, I forgot. I'm glad I put this slide in to remind myself. Another thing that I'm really excited about is that we're going to be welcoming the Friends Foundation back to our library next month. Cherry Creek North will have their sidewalk sale weekend from the 18th to the 21st. So we're going to have the Friends out in front of the library Thursday, Friday, Saturday of that week. So that's always a lot of fun. So just wanted to be sure to share that. That's kind of what I have for prepared stuff. I'm going to, I will share this as a PDF with the board so you can put that in your notes so folks have my contact information. Otherwise, I'm here for your questions.
Hillary, that was great. I'd forgotten about the used book sale. It's good
Yeah, it'll be fun to have one right there.
That'll be coming up soon. So I appreciate that. I know you were closed for a long time, so
we were closed for a very long time, and I know it was really hard on folks. I had a conversation with our manager of facilities yesterday because I wanted to make sure that I had the most up-to-the-minute information for you all. So where we're at right now, I'm not sure how much background information folks have. Oh, I see people have their hands raised. I'll just give a little more background and then I'll answer those questions. Sorry, I didn't see that till just this moment. So what had happened was that some structural deficiencies were noted with the building when we were about to get some other exterior work done. And it was determined through the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure that those needed some more analysis. And if you're standing in our parking lot, you can see, if you look at the columns on the back of the building, you can see the inch bracket. So we were closed for almost 2 years while they did several rounds of assessment that included things like taking concrete samples and analyzing them, x-raying the columns to see if they had the right amount of rebar. I think they did some drone stuff to see if the columns had shifted from where they were supposed to be. And finally, it was determined that it is a maintenance issue that needs to happen, but it's not a safety issue. And so we were allowed to reopen. So where that leaves us right now is that the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure is figuring out the design And we're actually very lucky because it's going to include some other stuff around the outside of the building that really needs to get done, handrails and things like that, that are just not in good shape. So they're figuring that out, and then it will go out for requests for proposals, to actually get the work. That is where we were at right now. It
Great.
looks like Charlotte had your hand
Charlotte.
raised.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Thanks. I'm glad to know you're back in business. So how is the parking situation there?
I wondered if I should share my whole spiel on that. Well, we are still located in Cherry Creek North. So it's not amazing, but the construction next door at Third and Fillmore had been using half of our lot until pretty recently, and we finally got them out of there. So we at least have our parking lot. We have two free 15-minute spaces, so those can be used, if you just need to pick up a hold or something like that. We're also still doing curbside service, if you just can't find a spot and you want us to come bring your stuff to you. And then otherwise it's paid parking. It's an SP Plus slot, so you can use that pay by phone app, or there's a kiosk where you can pay. Or I have my whole spiel about where you can, look for street parking in the neighborhood. We're right on the edge of the business district, so if you go just north of us, you can find some free 2-hour street parking.
I miss when we had free parking there. A lot of, I miss when there was actual library parking all along.
Yeah, I know. My understanding, I think it predated me, but I think it was when the house next door was just on one lot versus on two lots.
Well, we will try.
Yeah, there are those. I would say your best bet is probably looking for street parking just north.
Yeah, just walk in. I get it. Thank you.
Sure.
Wendy.
Yeah, Hillary, I just wanted to ask if you could summarize the information that you just gave for an article for our newsletter.
Oh, I'd be delighted to,
Great.
certainly.
I will send you I just put my email in the chat for you.
Okay,
So
I think we had emailed in the past. I might still
Yes.
have that. But I'll
Okay.
go ahead and, oh yeah, I recognize your email. I've got that.
Okay.
I'll reach out.
great, thank you.
Well, great. Thanks. Anyone else? Miles.
Yeah, Hillary, thanks for presenting. I have a question, and you may or may not know, and I was just wondering, how does Denver Public Libraries, I'm hearing stories from across the United States where people or groups are trying to ban books and stuff like that. How does the library deal with that, and who makes those types of decisions?
In terms of whether something actually is removed or moved in the collection.
Correct, correct.
Basically, what would happen if a book were challenged? For example, if my staff person called me over and said that someone were in the library who had a concern about a title, I would see what the title was. I would talk to the person. I would, find out, is it something that they've read, something they just heard about, that kind of thing. And then we do have a formal process. Sorry, I'm so backlit. We do have a formal process where there's a form that we would ask the person to fill out. That goes through our collection development office, and the manager of collections would make a recommendation to our city librarian, Michelle Jaski, who would have the final call on that.
So it would have to be somebody in the city of Denver who could make a complaint, not somebody online from another area.
Correct.
Good.
Yeah, our services are, we're part of the Colorado Library Consortium, and anyone who lives in Colorado can get a card with DPL. But our ultimate responsibility is really to the people of Denver. And so that's who's able to give us that kind of input on the collection.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time.
Well, thanks for coming. So I'm going to continue and just make a few announcements about the ongoing construction projects in the neighborhood. Jackson Street has now moved to the other side of Colorado Boulevard, between Colorado and Albion, and it's closed. Colorado is closed to a single lane on the east side of Colorado Boulevard. And that's going to be continuing to go on. And there will be some weekend work around the intersection of Colorado and Colfax as well. Denver Water is going to be working between East Colfax on between Cook and Colorado. So there's going to be road work there as well. So that whole intersection remains under construction. 8th Avenue and Josephine is getting a traffic light signal replacement and upgrades for ADA compliance, and that should be finished around July 1st. The post office is open again at Spinelli's. It opened on Monday of this week. If you weren't aware of it, it's functioning again. The pool is open. The playground will open July 28th, but they're not going to take the fencing down until that day. On June 25th at Maury Middle School, the mayor and Chris Hines are going to have a safety meeting at 5:30. And I would encourage anyone to go. As I continue with these announcements, I invited Dodie to come tonight. I contacted them a couple of times, and I asked them to come and talk about, they said they were doing a parallel street study on what was going to happen with traffic after the BRT was going on Colfax. And the last meeting we had, they said they did not have the study completed. And 2 months later, they no longer will even return my email. So if you have concerns about safety in Congress Park of any form, then June 25th, 5:30, Maury Middle School in the cafeteria, the mayor and Chris Hines will be there. The coffee bar at 12th and Clayton House of Copa, that's been closed for a couple of months, is going to reopen as Novo Coffee sometime in the next couple of months. They are working on the building, but it's my understanding that they're going to have some kind of pop-up prior to actually opening the whole building to start activating the site again. So that's good news. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight is we recently did a survey of Congress Park neighbors asking people about their issues in the neighborhood, the things that people like about Congress Park, the things that aren't working as well on a block by block basis, for them to get a feel of what the issues are that people are enjoying and struggling with in the neighborhood. We've spent a lot of time talking about BRT and different construction project impacts. And we're trying to refocus on all the issues that are going on in the neighborhood. So our survey results, we had 90 responses, which is actually quite good for an online survey. And the majority of people, 73%, have lived in Congress Park for more than 10 years, which means they've made a commitment. This is where they're living and their home is. They came from all different areas of the neighborhood. 90% of people that responded live in single family homes, and the majority of them live in Denver Squares, bungalows, Victorians, Tudors, classic home styles in Congress Park. The majority owned cars, and their parking was spread between their garages and the street. The physical qualities that were very universally expressed as important attributes of the neighborhood were mature trees, historical character of the homes, and the scale, both residential and commercial areas. I don't know if everyone's aware of it, but Congress Park has one of the largest collections of intact bungalows, squares, and Victorians of any neighborhood in the country. So it's not surprising that people really appreciate this. The walkability, the availability of parks, sidewalks, front porches, accessibility to local businesses, that the neighborhood is quiet and safe, and there's a homogeneity in the housing styles. The physical qualities that people were the most unhappy with were speeding, which universally comes up at meetings too. Traffic control, the volume of traffic, parking, street trash, having to put trash cans in the streets, sidewalks in poor repair, and one-way streets. Many people mentioned that they were very unhappy with the one-way streets, equating it with some of the traffic issues, and tear downs and new construction. When they were asked what would they change in the neighborhood if they could, there would be a limit on the level of density, an improvement in public transit, a preservation of character and scale, the return of trash pickup in the alley. People are very unhappy about tear down construction and the lack of parking and traffic enforcement. So with this information, one of the things I was going to do moving forward was contact the planning department when they did the neighborhood plan, the East Central area plan. One of the recommendations that the planners made was that Congress Park would be an excellent choice for a conservation overlay. And I'm sure many people are not fully aware of what a conservation overlay is. So on our next meeting, which is August 21st, I'm going to invite Congress, the planners to come back. They've done this before and give an educational presentation on what an overlay is, what it can and cannot do that might impact preservation in our neighborhood. The second thing I'm going to try and reapproach is to go back to solid waste and address the issue of putting trash bins in the street because, as we're all aware, the impact of trash bins, traffic, and the ongoing construction, it didn't make sense before and it doesn't make sense now. So I will try to address that again. I'm going to open it up for questions. Maggie, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
No, that was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that, but thank you for bringing those things up because I really support that. I think Wendy has questions.
Wendy?
Yeah, I wanted to go back. Thank you for overseeing all that, Vicky, and thank you for your work on the board here. I wanted to ask about the committee work that you've already done on this conservation overlay. How do you feel like that's making progress, and what are your next steps with that? Do you need more
Well,
people to participate?
I need everyone to participate. Um, the next step would be for planning to come and do an educational presentation on what an overlay is. One of the things the survey revealed was that people are interested in some level of preservation. The degree with which we can do that, we'll have to see. The survey was very helpful. People like the scale and the volume and how specifically we define that will be part of the discussion with planning. Charlotte, I've talked to you about this as well, so please go ahead. Charlotte?
Charlotte, you're on mute.
There you go.
Yep, you're right, on mute. Yeah, we did discuss it, and I like the idea of finding out what all we can do instead of just wringing our hands. I think
Yeah.
I'll probably still be a hand wringer for a while, but if this is something that the city will entertain, if we can get that in their heads, I think that it's well worth it to try something and something a little different than block by block, that are, just trying to do little pieces.
Right.
I think getting the whole, because that's what people feel in Congress Park, is that as a whole, we have something that's valuable. So that's I vote for that.
Yes. And I think the challenge I would put out for everyone is to really try and wrap your head around what a conservation overlay can do. It does not, it can only impact your property value in a positive way. It does not stop you from changing windows or making improvements on your home. It does not stop people from tearing houses down. But what it does do is create an envelope that keeps the scale and form of what Congress Park looks like more homogeneous. We have front porches. We have, for the vast majority, alley loaded drives that where people park in the rear. Um, Many people confuse it with a historic district, and it's not nearly, it's not the same tool. There's no design review board. There's only, you can build a house of this scale with this amount of lot coverage in this area. And I think part of what we all respond to is the scale of the neighborhood. And so when people come to you with concerns and fears, being able to point them in the direction of solid information, it really is an information campaign. Chris Hines supports it, but he's not going to be our biggest hurdle. You have to go through the Board of Adjustments, and they have to feel like you're not creating an impediment to housing. I think when people talk about density in Congress Park, there's where, are we going to take away housing or are we going to enhance housing? And the reality is the lots in Congress Park are only a certain size, and the density can only be so much. And is that helpful? My answering questions here.
Yes. And if you wouldn't mind, I was going to add something too. Um, this survey that was come up with basically by impact of the board, but primarily the people who are sitting on this conservation committee is just the tip of the iceberg. It was a start, and we plan on building it and having more surveys.
Right. To try that ultimately, just sec, Miles, I'll get you for sure. Ultimately, it's a zoning code that's written that says you can have this much lot coverage, a house can be so tall, and you create parameters. And it's going to take, there's a couple architects I'm working with on the board and the planners to write it. So over time, we have to do surveys and make sure people understand and buy in to it as well. Miles, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's really, you got some really good information. So the question I have, and you may or may not know how to answer this, is in Blueprint Denver, when they passed it, it said basically single family residential can be replaced with duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes throughout the whole of the city. And they haven't yet implemented it. They talked about it. They were going to do it. So how would this conservation overlay protect from the city saying, oh, we want more density, we want to allow quadplexes in Congress Park, because when you start doing things like that, you change the numbers of the lot. Now you can buy a bungalow, tear it down, and build a duplex, but the problem is it won't be affordable. It'll be like Cherry Creek. So do you know how that conservation thing could help minimize the wholesale
Yes,
destruction of the neighborhood?
yes, yes. specifically by defining the level of scale. And you can do that with lot coverage, and height, and I've got something going on. Something got in front of my screen, so I can't see, but the overlay in Congress Park Miles, the majority of houses do not have a 37.5% lot coverage. And sorry about this. So there's room to expand, and I think there's about 200 multifamily in Congress Park, and you can make requests on your overlay that say they must have a front entry, they must have parking in the rear, that will limit the absolute scale of what they can be. You cannot now stop someone from tearing down a single family and building a duplex, even if it is a single family. What you can really do is write an overlay that limits the size of what that can be. I can't do anything about affordability. I can't dictate what people build there, but I can impose a bulk plane limit that limits the size and the general form. A gable roof, a flat roof that must have a pediment.
Or no flat roofs because it doesn't
But
match
we
the
can't,
character.
Miles, and I'll tell you why. We have a lot of flat roof historic multifamilies.
We do?
Yes, we do.
What's I would think of a flat roof as something built in the 70s.
There's one over on Steel. There's one on Fillmore. They're fourplexes. They have flat roofs.
Yeah, built in the 70s, not
No,
historic.
no,
No,
actually on
no.
Milwaukee and 14th is an apartment building between 13th and 14th, built in the 30s that has a flat roof.
Yeah.
It has about 20 units in it.
And Miles, ideally, planning would like us to only address single family. But there's a significant part of Congress Park that has historic multifamilies.
Right. We
So,
have a very mixed neighborhood.
right.
It's
And
across
so
the spectrum.
it's more challenging. However, if you go back through Discover Denver and look at how they describe each house typology, when you look at the historic multifamilies, they all have a front center hall entry. They all have parking in the rear. They all have a certain scale. And you can ask for that. And
So,
that would be not, a developer does not want to chew up square feet with a center hall entry.
Maggie, do you know if the zoning from what Vicky's saying has changed? Because maybe this was too long ago, but I thought to build a duplex, you had to have a certain width lot. Does that not
You
apply
do.
anymore?
You
Oh,
do.
okay, okay.
You do, Miles. You do. And the things that you can play around with are 37.5% block coverage. Make sure that it's the limit, the setback between the main structure and an ancillary structure like a garage. Do you want to allow a garage to have 2 stories to create an ADU? We have historic garages that have ADUs above them. If you allow that, you also cut out a lot of daylight on a lot. So one of the things that Congress Park has going for it is our lot size. We hardly have any lot that's more than 5,000 square foot is a big lot here. And that limits stuff right there.
But
ADUs.
so with Cherry Creek, I'll finish up, Tom, real quick. So with Cherry Creek North, they must have a different building envelope, right? It's a much larger,
Yes.
because they take up the whole
Yes.
lot and they build all
Yes.
the way to the back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is exactly. The other characteristics are the first floor level. Almost every building in Congress Park has the first floor at 18 inches or more above grade. You walk up steps to go in a house.
Right.
As soon as you do that and you limit height, you change everything. If they make it on grade, they might be able to add a whole nother floor. But if you say the first floor has to be at that grade, that a gable height can be only so high, that you can pierce the bulk plane with dormer windows. You open things up, but the scale stays closer.
Yeah, I
So
think I've seen houses in Wash Park where they actually went below the sidewalk and they built 3 full stories all the way up. Yeah.
yes, and in Cherry Creek too. So you're absolutely right, Miles. And that's where the surveys come in. The biggest fear that Chris Hines has is that we get past the Board of Adjustment, and their major concern is going to be, will these limits create a higher cost of construction, or will they be good preservation things? We get past that, it goes to council, and 5 guys show up at council and protest. And so between here and there, all those ideas that I just threw out, all those have to be presented in surveys, and presented to neighbors, so they understand that you're enhancing the quality of the architecture of the neighborhood and preserving the scale so you have support. And that's where the money comes in, to generate drawings of, here's what you could do right now, but with a conservation overlay, this is what it would look like. Cherry Creek is a great example of taking a building envelope to the max and applying for a variance for more. And go ahead, Maggie.
Well, I don't know how many of you in this audience remember the old Cherry Creek North.
I do.
Yeah. So remember, those were very small little homes on very large plots of land. And when the developers came in, it was so easy then to divide and conquer. For example, I used to live on 4th and Madison. My entire block is gone now. And those were very small little little homes, some of them made out of cinder block. And it was so easy to purchase 2 or 3 lots, put them together and do their McMansions.
Yeah.
Because those lots were about 5,000 to 550.
And Denver's and they've seen that, and they've planning certainly more alert to daylighting issues because of that scale, and also Washington Park East. There was so much construction run amok over there that now it's not required, but daylighting has to be discussed. You can't dictate materials. I would like to push for maintaining front facades as much as possible.
Porches are good too.
And porches require a front porch entry.
Yeah, all of those are great.
So I mean, that's where it's at. I'm having a meeting, I think next Wednesday, and it's just a group of neighbors that we're looking for a historic district, and it's just there's no appetite for that. It feels too restrictive to people, and for individual dwellings, it's a viable path, but for entire neighborhoods, you just can't. So Congress Park is being confronted with a bunch of things that intersect that individual city entities are ignoring each other about. So we've got a huge traffic problem, we've got pedestrian problems, and a lot of development that is not affordable. And people are aware of that friction, and an overlay might be a step in the right direction to having a more thoughtful progress happen. Wendy, sorry.
Oh, no worries. I just wanted to say that I don't think you can overstate the difficulty in getting this to go through because as as everyone has recognized, it's what's happened in Cherry Creek North and in Wash Park seems to be what the city is okay with. So to get them to go through the various processes you have to get them to approve this conservation overlay, it's going to be quite difficult, I'm sure. So
I'm
bless
going
your
to be
heart.
positive, damn it. I am.
Gotta try.
Okay.
And I think people have an appetite for it. But I think it's time to go forward. And we did a survey at the time of the East Central Area Plan and asked about an overlay. And people were supportive, and there was presentation, but there was a lot of stuff going on. So now I think it's time to revisit it again. Miles.
Yeah, just a quick note. I think when I've heard the city throw out the word affordable, I'm really not quite sure how they define it, because if you look at cities across the nation, even cities across the world, things get more expensive. We have inflation, we have everything else. So when I hear the city say, oh, we'll change the zoning to make housing more affordable, well, I bring you the Cherry Creek example. Oh, if we make everything duplexed, it'll make it everything affordable. Not if they build it where each site is $2 million. So I think the context in how they use the word affordable is fairly loose. And so I think in understanding, they must clarify what they mean by affordable. Because things just are getting very, very expensive. So I just don't know how that word is being defined. I need clarity from the city, as well as specifically how is allowing multiple units going to make that more affordable. Because from what I've heard in the past, and this is many years ago, just to build even a income controlled or not low income housing, but well, maybe low income housing, but they were saying just to build each unit was $350,000. And that's why they needed the federal subsidies and the state subsidies, because they go, people can't afford that. But the cost was still $350,000 to build one unit. So you talk about a single property and something else. So it's just I need more definition from the city government and the governments of what this affordable thing they're reaching for. Because a lot of times you have these 70s developments with multiple units, and that's really affordable because it's an old unit, was built in the 70s, and people can rent it, and they're triplexes and duplexes. But when you tear that down and build something that is 4 times as expensive, I don't know if I could say that would be affordable compared to what was existing at the moment. So,
Well, there's a couple of issues that I've brought up. One is Congress Park has always been supportive of ADUs, and it's not that much of a threat here because of our lot size, except for basement ADUs. So the city perceives Congress Park as having a positive attitude. Both Chris Hines and planning, I have said to them, Congress Park cannot be responsible for solving the affordable housing problem in Denver. And they both have said, you're absolutely right. So in terms of their current perception of Congress Park, we are perceived as attempting to improve our housing stock, not reduce it. And in terms of defining affordable miles, no one's going to get them to define that. And they can make an argument that they have many high-paid workers that demand that level of housing. I'm not going to try and disguise it as anything but an act of preservation of a unique and functioning neighborhood.
I have a question
Sure.
to add to this. It's easy to kind of forget that we have a lot of the more 1400 block and a lot of other 1300, depends on where you are, that are currently, and always have for years at least, been divided up into what we'll call more affordable, nothing necessary. I'd like to know how many units we do have in Congress Park. That, I mean, there's a lot of apartment houses from whatever 12th North, basically, scattered in among the
Right.
historic ones, so that it's not like we don't have
Right.
our share of more affordable. I'll never say affordable, but more affordable. They're there. And you know that because you can see all of the out-of-state cars that are parked up and down in that area, meaning this is where people first come when they come into Denver and they're looking for jobs, and they're moving. So is there a way that we can tack that on? Is like, we already have in Congress Park a lot of the at least for some, more affordable housing stock. We're not talking about, because we like to talk
Right.
mostly about our single family stuff, but that's not all of Congress Park. So
No.
No, it's not.
Right.
And I might interrupt at this point saying the best way to find out about that is to count the mailboxes.
Exactly.
Because, like Karen and I live down here on Colfax practically, and our street and our house itself too was um, conversion, and we brought it back. But on the other streets, we have we have uh, homes that are conversions, and some of them having 5 to 7 units. We've been very careful to keep it under 7
Yeah.
for trash purposes. So I would suggest that we ask people, if you live on that area, how many mailboxes do you see when you're walking along?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Maggie. And I'd also like to, and this is why I was always thinking preservation or historic thing might be helpful because and I live down by Colfax as well, and I'm in a Denver Square. But what I've seen and just hearing people talk about the way they changed zoning to allow rooming houses, but to see these old Denver squares that have been around since the 1900s and they've been converted to many apartments, and it's just so that's why it's like I'd like to see the buildings left alone because they've been converted to they were single family homes, they were converted to multiple apartments, some of them were converted back to homes. It just tells you the architecture is conducive to lots of uses, and it's a flexible design. And so that's why you'd want to preserve some of these old houses because
Right.
you do have that flexibility, which the new houses do not. So, and it's already built too, so you're saving on the footprint and everything,
Yes.
so it's just like there's a lot of good things to say about the older houses. That's all.
And Miles, it meshes completely with sustainability, um, climate stuff. There's a million reasons. It's just being able to write code that has as few unforeseen consequences as possible while pushing for maintaining an appropriate scale and form. Um, there is one guy, I don't think he's here tonight, John Hindelman. I've been meeting with him. He's been very helpful. And he was on the Board of Adjustments for several years. So we're we're moving forward. It's a tough nut, but I'm willing to put energy into it and move it forward and hopefully succeed. But over the next year, there'll be meetings and presentations and surveys to keep a pulse on what people are looking for. The feedback I've gotten just on my block has been extremely positive. And I have an Airbnb, I have a coffee bar, and multifamilies, and people are looking for it. So if we can get enough support, I think all the issues raised are good arguments for maintaining affordability and dwellings. Tearing a building down takes away housing for a year uh, that previously existed. So,
Thank you.
anyone else want to throw anything out there? That's all I've got for tonight. I'm sorry. Usually we have people that want to speak to us, but Dodie is, I guess we've worn out our welcome with them.
I have a point.
Sure.
What was the, I'm changing. What was the date of opening the playground in Congress Park?
The 28th
It's
in
this
the
month.
morning, they're going to have a ribbon cutting, but they're not going to take the fence down until,
We can look in it.
yeah, until then. I think the rationale was the landscape is probably a brand new landscape.
Okay, so it's the 28th of this month. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. In the
Yeah,
morning.
the pool is open to swim.
My grandkids keep asking me.
I know the playground's very exciting. Tom,
uh things on the, let's see, northwest corner of 10th and St. Paul. There are three duplexes, built in 1904, all with a flat roof.
yeah,
And
yes,
my second thing is, I believe Wendy has an announcement about the newsletter.
yes.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say that I am working on putting together a spring summer issue. Apologies that I'm still not back on the quarterly schedule, but this spring I got transported to the planet of parental health care, and I am still not back fully. So I'm working on that next issue, and if anybody has any articles or photos that they'd like to send, um, they can send it to my email. Just look on the inside front cover of any newsletter you already have, or check our website. I also still need someone to help introduce the newsletter to our local businesses, our hyper local businesses in the neighborhood, and see if they want to advertise. Um, and that's about it. Just trying to get that out to the printer before the end of the month.
Okay, and I'm sure we need, Tom, I'm sure there's a few paper routes.
It's not too bad. There's a few though.
Okay, if anybody wants to volunteer for that. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and August 21st is our next meeting. And of course, you can email us with any questions or concerns. But get over there and swim and go to that safety meeting.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay. Good night,
Thanks, Vicky.
everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Thanks.
Vicki.
good night. Thanks.